right now. So this is from a longer collection of memories. So there's a bit of an introduction, and then I'm sharing one memory with you. And it's called For Now, the Memory Service. There are moments I brush past with a light touch. When they surface unexpectedly out of the murk of memory, my face flushes, my skin washes cold and then hot. I can't breathe. I scramble to shove the memories down, away, but I'm drawn back again and again. I think, if I deal with this head on, it'll be like a Band-Aid. Tear it off, and sure it hurts, but then it's done. Despite this practical thought, I keep picking at it and wincing away, drawing out the pain, because I'm sure that if I just rip the Band-Aid off, I'll die. So the memories remain unexamined and always return. Images, textures, and words flickering through my brain at night like an evil YouTube montage of humiliating moments. The softness of a girl's lips as I kissed them, just before I realized she'd only leaned forward to blow smoke in my mouth. Waiting tables, looking down to find that every button on my shirt had come undone except the top one. Her voice saying, "Look at this mess, you fat slob," and I can't tell you whose voice that was. It's time to shy away again. The memories surface when my partners have gone to bed and I'm alone. So most nights, I try to read until my eyelids droop. If it works, I wake up 8 hours later with my cheeks stuck to the open pages of O Pioneers. Having once again drooled all over bullet cabins. Sometimes, though, the images force their way to the surface, between rereadings of the Just So stories, between chapters of Lolita. After I've finished Ender's Game for the 4th time. Maybe, I tell myself, you have to delve in, relive each moment, let it hurt, and let it go. When Matt finally came up to San Francisco to spend a few days with me, he walked into my room and stood, staring. I watched him, not looking behind me. I knew what he saw, the pages of text and printed photos of Levi I'd taped all over the wall above my bed. I'd been artful. A little text here, a picture of one dark eye overlapping the text, a longer segment, a paragraph, a photo of Levi in his army-issue sunglasses driving his car. "It helps me write," I explained, and Matt nodded, not looking at me. His face had gone a little pink, and he wore a strange smile that made me talk faster, piling words between us and the moment when he'd first seen the collage. I turned to survey the wall, gesturing toward it as I spoke. A lot of writers do this kind of thing, actually. Levi, asleep on a pile of unidentified objects that joint base the log. You can sort of make your writing a physical object, you know? And that opens up new ways to think about it. Smirking at the camera from the other side of the campfire, a Bud Light in one hand. Plus, I can sort of lie in bed and look at it all and kind of just ponder it, you know, the whole story. It really makes a difference. Matt said. He glanced at the wall again, eyebrows raised, mouth tight. He looked away from the wall and changed the subject. So, how's the writing been going anyway? You still working on that sci-fi piece too? We sat on my bed talking, cuddling a little. I'm sure we were both thinking about the collage literally hanging over our heads. It didn't take long for the conversation to come back around to Levi. And honestly, I've spent a lot of time playing World of Warcraft and sort of talking to Levi.
Yeah.
That's how I met Levi, as Matt knew, through online gaming. I smiled, shrugged. I told Matt about how Levi and I had been playing non-stop. I wanted to tell him about the videos Levi had sent me and the photos I had sent him, but I needed it to come naturally, part of the conversation, rather than me spouting information, like a child offering finger paintings to Daddy. Look what I did! And anyway, it was more like showing Daddy that he finger painted on the wall. I eyed him, looking for the right moment. "He's still bugging you for naked pictures?" Matt asked. I took a breath. I know he felt my body tense. "Well," I said, "yes, but actually I sent him some already." Oh? Matt looked at me, then glanced around the room a little blindly. He sat up and I shifted too, pulling away toward the edge of the bed. He shook his head. Wow. I don't remember all the words spoken, but we moved swiftly from wow to what the fuck. When I told him that, you know, actually I'd kind of shaved my pussy to send the pictures to Levi at the Air Force Base. "You're using this thing with Levi to get at me," he accused. I crossed my arms over my chest and stared at the wall, not the Levi wall, which made me feel a little strange. "It's not just something that happened between you and him. It's about me and you and me. And instead of talking to me about it, you talk to him about it how," I spluttered, snapping my head around to glare at him. "You're never here. You don't even want to see me." He raised his eyebrows and looked skeptical, but didn't interrupt. I gestured toward the laptop where it sat open on my desk. Yeah, you're right. Part of my relationship with him, not all, but part, is about how I feel about you. But that's not all my fault. That's not just me being right, he drawled. Yeah, it's my fault you decided to shave your... I didn't say it was your fault. I'm just saying. When we couldn't stand sharing the small enclosed space of my room anymore, we walked to the park half a mile from my apartment. We'd been arguing for hours by then. We'd been loud, shouting at each other, him lashing out, me crying and looking as hurt as I could, him sneering and telling me to stop playing martyr. We had brief periods of rational discussion. We'd even laughed a few times. Climbing the many stairs and paved curving paths up into the park, we were mostly silent. Yeah, well, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. I feel lonely, I muttered. We sat on a bench at the playground behind us and stared at the painted ladies, that row of Victorian homes you see on San Francisco postcards. Levi always seems like he's happy to see me, like he's waiting for me, like hanging around with me is absolutely the thing he wants to do. I sighed, staring at the ladies, not really thinking about them, just letting my eyes wander over them. Green, blue, yellow, each with its own little tree outside on the sidewalk. I shrugged. Which, I mean, yeah, he's stuck on a military base and all. But with you, I feel like, if anything, you're kind of annoyed that I'm there. Like, you'd be happier if I just left. I glanced at him beside me, his face said, sort of red around the eyes, but calmer now, no longer clenching his jaw quite so tight. We sat together for a while, then headed back to the apartment. We weren't holding hands or anything, but things felt a little better. Okay, he said, meeting my eyes. We'd been back in my room again for an hour, just sitting. I'd winced when he sat in the gold yard sale armchair a couple feet from the end of the bed instead of sitting beside me. I moved down toward the end of the bed to face him, sort of. I angled myself to the side so I wouldn't have to actually look at his face. Apparently he hadn't wanted to look at me anyway, because most of the conversation happened with him staring off into some middle distance. When he locked his eyes right onto mine, I jumped. He smiled but looked sad. I think I want to see it now. What? I stared at him. He nodded like he thought I knew what he meant, and I did. But I couldn't say so. Impossible. He watched me. I pulled my limbs closer in against the trunk of my body, wrapping my arms around my legs, pulling the blanket up around me. I don't know what... Take off your pants. What the fuck? I tried to sound indignant, but I couldn't pull it off. I put up a Levi collage in my bedroom. I'd shaved so I could send pictures to this guy on some military base in another country because he said, love you, hon, every day, and I was pissed that that didn't. Indignant wasn't going to fly. I stared at him, shaking my head. He nodded toward the lower half of my body. Take off your pants. He looked up and caught my eyes again. I'm going to look. I need to see it. I said no, not the excited, giddy, no, oh my God, no, from before, when Levi had first asked for pussy pictures, but a deeper, trembling no. Matt stared at me, drew his brows down just a little, nodded toward my lower body again. Take off your pants and slide down to the end of the bed. I whimpered and muttered and did what he said. It felt like gravity. Nothing else could happen but that I moved down to the end of the bed. It wasn't a question of whether I'd take off my pants, but a question of how much whining I'd do before I finally got there. I yanked my down comforters snugly around me and slid my jeans and underwear off underneath it, pushing the clothes off the bed so they fell out from under the blanket. There, I said, fine, I took them off. I didn't move from underneath the covers or down to the end of the bed. Matt quirked up one side of his mouth. Now the blanket, and moved down to the end of the bed. Okay, fine. I guess you're just going to keep bugging me until I do it. I tried to sound exasperated. So, whatever, fine. I guess, fine. I slid down to the end of the bed so that I was sitting, feet on the floor, facing them. I started to unwrap the blanket, then stopped. You're just gonna look? I mean, that's weird, you know. I mean, I don't take off the blanket, he said, as though I hadn't spoken, and lie back on the bed. I made one of those noises, something between a whimper and a sigh, one of those sounds that combines feelings in a way for which there's no easy descriptive word. Frustration, fear, humiliation, guilt, anger, desire, probably a few other things. I lay back on the bed and pulled the comforter aside, shivering as though it were cold in the room, though it wasn't. I knew he could see each tiny shiver, especially after he made me open my legs and wider, so he could see everything, all the angles I'd hidden from Levi with my camera tricks. It felt like he looked forever. He leaned in close, and I feared his hand coming down hard to slap the newly naked skin between my thighs. I leaned up, straining my shoulders and neck to see him, to read his face if I could. I dropped back down quickly, unable to look at him looking at me. He didn't speak for a long time. Okay, he said finally, you can move. I scrambled up the bed, slid over onto my stomach, and pulled the comforter up over me. I pressed my face into the pillow and sobbed. I admit to seem annoyed. Matt climbed onto the bed and slid up next to me. I turned away from him and hugged the pillow, but he put his arm around me and pulled me against him. He told me what he'd been thinking, that he'd look at my pussy and see how I'd shaved for Levi, marked myself for someone else, and then he wouldn't see me, but only Levi when he looked at me. But I didn't, he said, his lips brushing my ear. He sounded surprised. A wave of warmth washed through my body as his breath tickled my skin. I felt the pressure of his hand on my hip, but I didn't turn to face him yet. I was thinking, how do I do things like this? And what kind of person am I? I was thinking, I need to get that fucking colosh off the wall. He pressed his lips against my shoulder. I didn't see him at all. I saw you. I let my memory down. Many more, but